They don't remember how I joined the company, probably never noticed the day I sat alone in the server room, rewriting half their backend overnight so their big product demo wouldn't crash in front of investors. My name's Alex Tran. 3 years ago, I wrote the core framework for Nexora, a startup building workflow automation tools. What I built wasn't flashy. Data pipelines, API managers, security layers, but without it, their system would collapse like a house with no foundation. In the office, I was always the last to leave. Nobody called my name in the all-hands meetings. The CEO's speeches drew applause. The sales team's wins got champagne. Even the design interns got a shout-out. Me? I stood at the back of the room, sipping cold coffee and watching them toast through the glass. I didn't need applause. I needed stability. Then came the meeting with the CTO. "Alex, you're talented, no doubt," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. "But you're just a developer. You don't see the vision. That's why we're bringing in fresh blood, people with drive." People with drive? I'd built their entire backend, optimized every function to save thousands in server costs, patched critical vulnerabilities before they hit production. But sure, bring in the interns. 2 weeks later, HR sent me an email. "We've decided to end your contract effective May 1. Please hand over all credentials and admin access before then." No meeting, no thank you, just a cold line of text. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I smiled, because what they didn't know, what no one in that building had ever cared to ask, was that I'd quietly registered the copyright on the core framework under Alex Tran LLC last year. A minor formality, they would have said, but the law sees it differently. I handed over everything, except for the one thing they didn't know I owned. On my last day, I arrived before anyone else. The office was silent, just the low hum of servers and the faint buzz of fluorescent lights. I logged in one final time. Lines of code scrolled down the screen as I typed. The dashboard glowed softly, displaying the system I'd spent 18 months building. Download all user data from January to today. The external drive whirred to life, a quiet mechanical sound in the empty room. I wasn't angry, not really. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about making them pay. It was about insurance. 3 months earlier, they had asked me to mentor the new interns, kids fresh out of Stanford and MIT full of energy and arrogance. One of them smirked as I explained a refactoring approach. "Yeah, we learned about that, but honestly, it's kind of outdated." Outdated. They didn't know that outdated framework was the reason Nexora's backend didn't implode under load last quarter, or that it had quietly saved the company over $400,000 in server costs. But I didn't argue. I just took mental notes.
And each night, long after the lights went out and the interns had gone home, I stayed behind, making my own plans. Last summer, while everyone was distracted chasing VC funding, I'd filed for copyright on the core backend framework. At the time, it felt like a small, boring formality. Now, it felt like holding the only fire extinguisher in a room full of people playing with matches. A month before my exit, legal called me in. "Just standard paperwork, Alex," the company lawyer said, sliding a thick document across the table. "An IP assignment to ensure everything you've built stays with Nexora. We're a family here, right?" I flipped through the pages slowly. Page 12, page 23, page 31. "Do I have to sign this?" I asked quietly. "Well, technically, no," the lawyer admitted. "But it's highly recommended. Makes things cleaner." I closed the folder. "I think I'll hold off." Their smiles tightened. The next day, my access to key project boards mysteriously disappeared. Pull requests I submitted hung in review limbo for weeks. Gradually, I became invisible. But invisibility has its perks. Buried deep on page 47 of my original employment contract was a clause no one had ever mentioned. All code written beyond assigned deliverables is deemed external intellectual property unless otherwise specified in writing. One sentence. Easy to miss, but deadly if you understood what it meant. On my final night, I watched the system logs flicker on screen. I used to care about this place. Used to believe I was part of something bigger. Not anymore. I copied the last directory, the framework that powered their product, onto my drive. Legally mine. Every line of it. The following week, Nexora prepared for their biggest demo yet. A potential deal with an international client. I wasn't invited, but I knew they were still running their backend on my framework. What they didn't know was that the new version I deployed months ago included a small change. Production environments now required a license key to operate past 14 days. No key, no system. I wasn't looking for a fight. Wasn't planning to crash their big day. All I wanted was to see what happens when people who think they're untouchable finally hit a wall. On demo day, they walked on stage smiling. None of them realized the clock had already started counting down. Demo day arrived like a storm. I watched from home, coffee in hand, as the live stream began. Nexora's CEO strutted across the stage in his custom-tailored suit, radiating the kind of overconfidence only someone oblivious could muster. Today, he announced to the crowd of investors and partners, you'll witness a new era of workflow automation. This is more than software. It's our vision for the future. Polite applause, bright lights, a giant screen behind him showing slides I recognized, because I designed half of them myself. They laughed at me when I said I owned the code. They called me overly cautious when I warned them about licensing agreements. Now, the clock was ticking. At 11:15 a.m., the engineering team deployed the production build for the live demo. I could almost hear the backend spinning up, my backend. The same framework I'd written at 3 a.m. during their first funding crunch. The one they now took for granted. The system booted cleanly. Investors nodded in approval. A few even leaned forward, impressed by the speed. For exactly 12 minutes, everything worked perfectly. Then the first warning appeared. A small, easily overlooked pop-up in the admin dashboard. License validation failed. 48 hours remaining before production lock. At first, the interns probably thought it was a bug. Maybe they scrambled to dismiss it, their fingers flying over keyboards backstage. But there was no bug. I wrote that alert myself. By noon, the CEO was fielding questions from a major Japanese client. The room hummed with optimism. Investors were already whispering about term sheets. And then, right on schedule, the second warning, 24 hours remaining. License key required for continued use. This one wasn't so subtle. It flashed in bold red across every admin panel. I pictured the interns backstage, panic rising in their voices. Why is this happening? Didn't anyone check the deployment environment? I thought the license was for staging only. No, oh God. It's on production too. The CTO's face must have gone pale as he realized they had launched their biggest demo on a system they didn't fully own. By 1 p.m., the CEO was sweating through his shirt. Investors noticed the growing tension. The Japanese client asked, "Is there an issue with your servers?" "No," the CEO stammered. "No issue. Just some routine maintenance alerts." But I knew. In the backend logs, the counter kept ticking down. 23:59:58. Every second the trap tightened. I didn't crash their system. I didn't have to. The license I owned was the lock. And they had no key. That evening, as Nexora's team scrambled for solutions, an email landed in my inbox. From CTO, subject, urgent, licensing issue. Hi, Alex. We seem to be experiencing a licensing problem with some of the modules you worked on. Could you clarify if this is related to the copyright you filed? If possible, let's arrange a call as soon as possible to resolve this. We're under serious time pressure. I set my coffee down and read the email again. Now they remember my name. 2 hours later, a second email arrived, this time from the CEO himself. From CEO, subject, request to discuss Alex. We may have overlooked some details regarding the backend licensing. Let's work something out. Name your terms. I didn't respond. Not yet. By the next morning, their system was in full lockdown. Dashboards were blank. APIs returned 403 errors. Nexora's flagship product, the one they bragged about to every investor, was dead in the water. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even satisfied. What I felt was something colder. Control. By the time they realized they needed me, it wasn't about code anymore. It was about ownership. And I didn't plan on giving it back. By the end of the week, Nexora was a sinking ship. The system remained locked, their flagship product dead on arrival. Clients were pulling out, one by one. Investors demanded answers. And employees, they were sending resumes into the void. The headlines started circulating on tech blogs. Nexora's demo disaster, licensing issues stall launch. I didn't have to leak a single thing. The truth had a way of surfacing on its own. Their first offer came in on Friday. From legal@nexora.com. Subject, immediate licensing proposal. Dear Mr. Tran, we recognize there may have been an oversight in assigning intellectual property rights to Nexora's core framework. In an effort to resolve this amicably, we propose a one-time payment of $100,000 for full transfer of ownership. Please respond within 24 hours. I didn't respond. Not because I needed time to think, but because silence speaks louder than any counteroffer. By Monday, their tone had shifted. From CEO@nexora.com. Subject, can we talk? Alex, this doesn't have to be contentious. We're willing to be flexible on terms. Just tell us what you want. What I wanted? They wouldn't understand. Because this was never about the money. It was about ownership. Ownership means you don't beg for a seat at the table. You own the table. On Wednesday, my attorney sent Nexora a draft agreement, a licensing deal, $500,000 per quarter, non-exclusive, renewable annually. They wouldn't own my code. They'd rent it. At first, the CEO refused. This is extortion, he barked in a call my attorney summarized for me. He's holding the company hostage. No, I wasn't. They had every right to rebuild the backend from scratch. They just didn't have time. By Friday night, they caved. I received a short confirmation email. Mr. Tran, we accept your terms. Please see the signed agreement attached. The contract bore the Nexora letterhead and the CEO's signature, rushed, uneven, like someone had signed it with a shaking hand. When the first licensing payment hit my account, I felt nothing. No rush of victory, no burst of pride, just calm. Like flipping a switch and watching the lights come on. A week later, I saw a LinkedIn post from Nexora's CTO. After an incredible journey, I'm stepping down to pursue new opportunities. I wish the team all the best in their next chapter. Translation: they pushed him out. The CEO tried one last time. Alex, you played this smart. Smarter than any of us expected. If you're ever interested in coming back, at an executive level, I'll make it worth your while. I didn't reply. Some doors aren't meant to be reopened. 3 months later, I launched my own firm, Trans Systems, specializing in secure infrastructure licensing. Clean, simple, profitable. Clients paid on time, no drama, no games. And I made one rule for myself. Never let them laugh at you twice. They thought I just wrote the code. Turns out, I own the future. Subscribe, leave a comment, and follow me to hear more incredible stories coming your way.